Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 5 Tips and Tricks for Careers in Athletics. I am your host, Dr. Maury Mosovitz, with my all-time best, most favorite, most wonderful co-host, Jen Albanese. Hey, Jen.
Hello, Maury. How are you today?
Doing really well, doing well. Just
Yeah.
excited for our guest, getting through the day. It's
Yes.
the fun stuff.
Oh my God. Well, I have a story for you.
There
So,
we go.
literally, as this was happening to me today, I was like, I'm talking about this on the podcast. Literally.
See, that's always that's the mind frame that we have to be in all the time. Is can we share this on the podcast?
As I was in pain, I was literally like, I have to talk about this on the podcast. So, I went to the doctor's today because last night I was like cleaning my ears with a Q-tip, which apparently you're not supposed to do.
No.
And I pushed wax too far into my left ear. Now, this has happened to me 2 other times in my life, but this hasn't happened in 6 years. I remember this happened right after Natalie was born, and I had to go and get my ear flushed.
Yeah.
And if anybody's gotten their ear flushed out, it's the most uncomfortable yet most incredible feeling.
I was going to say.
It's both at the same time. It's so uncomfortable, but it's the most incredible feeling. So I was maybe when I wake up today, my ear will feel better. Nope, still plugged. I'm like, okay, well, I got to get this taken care of. So I call the doctors, and they're like, we have no appointments. And
I was going to say, how did you even get in? It's never able to possibly get in.
I have to get in. I'm like, can it go to a different location? The woman was like, well, the only thing I have is, can you be here in 15 minutes?
Oh.
I was like,
when did you call? What time of day was it?
I called at 2:00 right after our staff meeting. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And I had another meeting right then, but it was with my marketing team. And I was like, listen, guys, can we push it for 45 minutes? I got to run to the doctor's. And my doctor's is not super close to work. It's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I literally got there, went a little fast, but got there by 2:30 when she needed me to be there. So walk in and sit me in the office, and they're like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like, so I did, wasn't supposed to, I plugged my ear. I got a little wax in there. And the doctor's like, okay, looks at it. She's like, yeah, got wax in there. We'll flush it out. I'll send the nurse in. Now, the last time the doctor did it, not the nurse.
Oh.
Okay. So the nurse comes in, very sweet. And she says, okay, so you have to hold the little thing under your ear. And then it's the little squirt bottle where they squirt the water in. And it's so it's rushing in. And usually, the last time I remember vividly, at first it feels like your whole ear is filled with water. And then instantly.
Like you're underwater.
You're underwater. Yeah. And then instantly it's clear. And you're like, oh, you feel like you're Superman. And
there's a release. It releases out of your.
So let me just tell you. This woman did it for 15 minutes and nothing was coming out. So now I'm in a state of panic, okay? Because I'm like, I made this worse. Oh my, I'm sweating.
I have a really important question.
What?
Did you start to cry?
No, I did not cry.
Okay. Because I can see that happening.
No, my whole shirt is sopping wet, okay? I'm sweating. I'm panic. I'm okay, now I'm panicking. And they're shoving water in your ear. I'm dizzy. I'm dizzy. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, she's like, okay, I'll give you a second. So I pull myself together and I think, I asked her, I said, is there any sort of medicine in there? Is there I don't even know. She goes, well, I could put hydrogen peroxide in there and it's going to make your ear fizz.
Tingle.
And tingle. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we should try that since we've done this for 15 minutes and it's not working. Okay. So she puts it in there. Then she puts another solution. She mixes it up and she's like, okay, this is going to fizz a little bit. But I just want to let you know, she does it 10 seconds. Clear.
It just goes away. Yeah.
Clear. And I'm like, oh my God, I can hear. She goes, really? It worked? And I was like, what do you mean it worked? Aren't you the nurse?
Didn't the wax come out though?
Yes,
Didn't it?
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I was going to say she should see it coming out of it. How is it a surprise to her? I was like, did the hydrogen peroxide melt the wax? That's really strange too. That kind of creeps me out.
No, it came right out. She goes, oh, I see this. Though she looks in my ear. She goes, oh my God, it's all clear. I mean, it's a little red. And I said, yeah, you've been water flooding my ear for the last 15 minutes. It's red. So anyways, my ear is clear. I can hear fantastically right now. I feel like I'm Superman. I can hear like miles away.
I feel like I should do that. I feel like it would make me feel like a lot clean. I remember like one time in the training room for some reason they were doing it, and like there was like 10 people that lined up and they were like seeing who had the most earwax that was coming out. I mean, this was many, many years ago.
Oh my
but like
God.
I do think about it, but it's that feeling. It's like it rushes out. It's like the most
Oh
satisfying,
my
like
God. It's so
releasing
uncomfortable because
feeling.
it's like feels like you're
Yeah.
underwater, but then it's like instant like
Yeah.
So anyways, as I left, I thought that's gonna be a great podcast.
It's a perfect podcast story and
Let's
leads us.
go.
There's nothing
Has
about earwax
nothing to
today
do
about our
with our
guest
guest,
today, but it is a good story. So with that, we'll go to a commercial and we'll get back to our guest right after this.
Yes.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please follow us on your favorite podcast streaming service. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast is a part of Athletic Career Consulting, a group focused on educating and guiding high school and college students looking towards careers in athletics. To find out more, go to our website at www.athcareer.com. That's ATHCAREER.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. And we have our guest with us. Maury, would you like to introduce her?
Absolutely. Today we're diving into the career of a coach who has quickly become a rising star in the field hockey world, starting her career as a standout player at the University of Maryland. This coach earned an NCAA championship as a freshman and became a multi-time All-American. Her playing days didn't end there. She also represented the U.S. indoor national team, competing prestigious international events like the Junior World Cup and Junior Pan American Games. Transitioning to coaching, she made her mark as an assistant coach at both Temple and Syracuse, where she helped shape the future of student athletes through technical development, recruiting, and game strategy. She also worked with the U.S. indoor team, assisting with preparation for the 2020 Rohrmax Cup in Australia. Her coaching success continued when she became the head coach at Rhodes College, where she led the team to a Southern Athletic Association championship and guided the program into its best season in years. Under her leadership, Rhodes became a Division III powerhouse with a significant jump in wins and recognition for coaching excellence. Now, in her second season as head coach of Towson University field hockey team, she's already making huge impacts. In her first season, she led Towson to its best record since 2011. It's clear that this coach's experience, leadership, and passion for the sport are already transforming the Towson program. So without further ado, we're thrilled to welcome Coach Katie Gerzabek Salem to the show. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, it's great to see you again.
You as well, both of you. It's been a long time.
I know.
It's so wonderful to see people that we saw earlier in their career just like doing such great things and being head coaches. So it's great to see it.
You're big time now, Katie. You're big time.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm trying to get there.
That's so exciting, though.
I mean, you're in my hometown. I grew up right down the street from Towson University, so I know all about where you are now.
No, I absolutely love this area. And like, I went to the University of Maryland, and so everyone was like, oh, you're going back home. But it's totally different sides of the state. And I'm like, I know nothing about the area. But it's been really a great 2 years here so far.
That's awesome. And you're doing so well, and you're getting a team going, and that's always an interesting task, and you're already seeing some success with that. So
yeah,
we're excited to have you and give
awesome.
Some tips to those people that are looking to get into athletic careers and coaching. So from there, let's hear your first tip.
Okay, perfect. So my first tip would just be to be open and flexible to new and different opportunities that arise. I think so many people that want to get in athletics kind of pigeonhole themselves into, I want to be in the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, the Power Four that there is now. But I think it's really important that you keep those options open, whether that's, a grad assistant job or, it's good to have your goals and your sights set. But I think to close off different opportunities, you can close off even bigger opportunities that will come before you. So I think that's really important and something that I've learned. And, in this world of athletics, sometimes location isn't ideal with what you want to do. I mean, I grew up in the Philadelphia area, and my first head coaching job was in Memphis, Tennessee, where field hockey isn't necessarily, right in everyone's back door. So I think without that opportunity, though, at Rhodes, I would never have been able to come to Towson and be able to have the success that we have. So I think, just staying open and flexible to different locations, different job titles, just helps prepare you for what's to come for the future. And then just from a coaching perspective, I still coach U8s, U10s, elementary and middle school. And so I think, even though you're a college coach, I think coaching different age groups and different levels can also just help you in your full-time job as a college coach to simplify the game, because as coaches, we tend to overcomplicate things as things get down the line. And I think when you work with, the little third graders, they don't know any better. So to simplify things, it just helps you when you get to the college game as well. So that would be my first tip.
Well, that's awesome. I think, bringing people back to their roots, you always have these groups that are like, oh, now we've done this incredibly difficult play, but then you forgot how to handle the ball at the same time. It doesn't really work that well.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, they're so fun. They don't know any better, right?
Yeah.
They have such a passion for the game and, the naiveness, I guess, of what it is. And it really reminds you why you do what you do, and the love and the passion that comes through when you're coaching them.
It's funny because Jen and I both have little ones. And so now it's that transition of trying to be okay, how do we teach these skills? And it's,
and my daughter actually did a field hockey, like a trial thing where she went and tried it out, and she actually really liked it. And I was like, hey, that's great. I love it.
That's awesome.
That's great. So that's really
awesome.
Cool. I love what you said about openness too, and being that kind of spans more than just coaching. I feel like it's any part of, sports, being open to, go different places and try different things, because that's going to help you grow in your career. And I think we've had a few people say it in different ways, but I like the openness piece, to being open to going places and not just being so okay, if I don't get a job, like you said, in the SEC, I'm a failure, or this isn't working, because that can be your best experiences and you don't even realize it. So that's really good. I like that a lot.
Awesome. So. Well, great start. Let's get on to number 2.
Okay, so my second one would be just to get out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there in, many different aspects. As a coach, you often ask your players to do the same thing. You're critiquing them, wanting to make them better, wanting them to prove. But I think as coaches or as administrators or whatever you are in athletics, it's important to ask, have you been evaluated, or have you been coached as a coach recently? And that's something that I did a level 3 certification with USA Field Hockey last year. And it really opened my eyes to being okay, well, wait a minute. How am I delivering my information? Am I teaching it accurately? Am I speaking way too much and it's just mumbled words at some point? So I think, especially in coaching, as you get higher up in divisions, it's just important to get back to, okay, are you being the best person you can possibly be? Are you being the best coach? Are you delivering the best messages? And it's not comfortable at all to be, critiqued and evaluated by peers. But again, we ask our student athletes to do that all the time. And so who are we to do it and not, or give it and not receive it ourselves? So I think being open to that criticism, but on the flip side of that, if you're trying to get into coaching or into athletics, reach out to different sports as well.
Absolutely.
When I was at Syracuse, I reached out to the Syracuse football recruiting department about how can I, recruit better to this school, and different, same with soccer and basketballs and lacrosses, just to see from their perspective. So I think we can also learn not just from our sport, but also from other sports in your programs around you. Again, putting yourself out there, getting uncomfortable, will again set you up for success, for the future. And, I've had Division III programs reach out to me to come shadow a practice, or club coaches come shadow a practice. So just encouraging, that connection and that networking will just ultimately, not just about the X's and O's of the game, but also the culture building and the connections that coaches have with their student athletes as well.
No, awesome. I think it's such a good point about like challenging yourself and like being willing to receive feedback. And I think a lot of young people don't realize where the resources are. Like you said, like you can be at a school, but go down the street to someplace not far and say, hey, I'd love to see how you do something. Or a lot of young people don't realize, you talked about USA Field Hockey, who I know is really active and puts on a lot of support for coaching staffs and people that are involved in field hockey, but there's other associations, we talk about college athletics, NACTA, and going to like go to those things and get the critiques from your peers and do those different things that really challenge you to look outside of what you're doing and yourself. I mean, that's such an important part of the process.
Yeah. And I think, it's about connections, right? And, sometimes it's not on the field. It might be at happy hour at one of these things,
Exactly.
And I think that's super important to understand, is that having those conversations should just start, might just steamroll something else down the line as well.
Definitely those connections at happy hour. I'll agree with that. That's where a lot of the networking happens. But I was going to say, like, today I was uncomfortable and we had I got feedback from staff and I was like, you know what? Yeah, that's right. I should have done it this way, or should have done something this way. Like we always say, what do we say more? Like being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And it's something you have to get used to, because it's weird. You feel like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this, but once you get used to it, it only makes you better. So
and I mean, no one likes to be told that they're doing something wrong, or like, oh, I didn't like this about what you did. But again, I think it's important to go back to, they're not judging or critiquing your values and your personality. It's just a behavior.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's just your behavior or your action. It's not personal. And especially in my world of and yours as well. Like, you have a staff under you, and how can you all work the best you can for why you're doing what you're doing? At the end of the day, you got to put egos aside and be able to find those connections.
And not that you're doing something wrong, but it was an opportunity to learn. Maybe it's better to do it differently. Like that's the thing. I think we've heard some people say it before, like it's a mindset thing. You got to tweak it, but you got to engage with it. Like you said, like put yourself in the position to connect, whether that's on your regular day-to-day, like Jen said, or going out there and making sure that you're positioning yourself to get those experiences.
And I think every year too, especially in collegiate athletics as a whole, new rules, new agendas, new things, right?
Always changing.
Happening. So
always changing.
What happened last year, or how you did something last year, is probably not going to work the next year, right?
I mean, just with the rules right now, tomorrow it could be completely different. With
like, I'm going to wake up to an email like new, with new rules. But I mean, I think that's, goes back to the openness piece, but also the flexibility of, having those options and understanding you're just trying to do everyone's just trying to do their best at the end of the day.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Killing it. Okay. Number 3, Jen, am I on track? Number 3.
We're on number 3.
My third one kind of rolls into off of what I just said, but it's to not be afraid to make mistakes and to use the people around you to find solutions. I think, so often, especially when you first get into collegiate athletics, you're kind of walking on eggshells because you're not quite sure. But I think if you're not fully immersing yourself into things, you're never going to know what the possibilities are. And it is okay to make mistakes, but what's not okay is to not ask the right questions to fix them or use the people around you. So, I think it's, how do you be a good teammate? How do you collaborate with those around you? And it's okay to not have all the answers, right? And I think oftentimes student athletes look at you to have all the answers, but to be honest and transparent of, I have no idea, but I'll find out for you from the right people. I think it goes a long way with vulnerability as well, but, kind of being vulnerable to make the mistakes, but also to ask the questions and to work well with, whether if you're a coach and, you're getting stormed out, how do you work with facilities to find an option inside? Right. Is there an option, and in different scenarios, I think is important with that.
No, you're making me think about so many, and like being a young leader in it is that like one of the things you said right off is like that your staff is your resource, right? And like so many people I think that are in leadership roles or head coaches, and I won't say head coaches because I think sometimes you get to that point, but that you have those people there for a reason. Like you don't know everything and you have to lean on them. They can be your, like, to me, my staff is sometimes my best resource for being able to say, hey, I don't know how to do this. What do you guys think is the right way to do it? And that's why they're there, is for us to build a team and a support staff and to be able to be vulnerable, to have those conversations. Because if you, that's their role, and you can't know everything as a leader.
Yeah. We always say, like, I'd rather have you tell me you don't know something than make up the answer.
Right.
We always say that to, like, our interns and our game day staff. Like,
absolutely.
If a fan comes up to you and asks you a question, don't make up an answer. If you don't know it, say, I don't know and I'm going to find out. That way, at least you're being honest and you're making the effort to try to find out. And then you'll learn from that as well.
Exactly.
So it's so much better than just making something up. Like, rather, like you said, be vulnerable and say, I don't know the answer. Let me see how I can get you that answer. Or I can try to find a way to get you that answer. So
and
that one's
you're bound
one.
to get that question again too, or
100%.
So like maybe like 10, 100 more times in the week or the year. But I think it's important just to, it's okay. We're not all perfect. And that's why staffs are put together, to your point, Maury. And I think, that's something that I've really had to learn in the last couple of years as well, is, coming from Division III head coach, I was facilities, I was marketing, I was academic advising, I was strength and I was like, you name it, I had that hat. And so I was so used to a certain way, and then coming to Towson, I have so many more resources and opportunities to be able to delegate that. I don't want to be the strength coach. I don't want to be marketing. I want to be a coach and an educator. And so, those people and those departments are put together to help, not to hurt. And so use them them to your advantage, and how you can work together. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for the student athletes, I would hope, and how we can, make their experience the best it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Number 4. We're number 4.
Number 4.
So my last one, it's kind of open-ended, but it's know your why and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think so many people are like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky you work in college athletics, and they see the glitz and the glam and the, whatever they think they see on ESPN or Fox Sports or whatever. But, there's a lot of lows. It's a roller coaster of emotion. Right. You have the highest of highs when everything's going great, your culture's great, you're winning. And you can have the lowest of lows when your culture is going a little crazy and you're also losing games. So I think understanding and always going back to why you're doing what you're doing is super important. And because in the day-to-day, you can get lost. And I have a little note on my office, like wall right in front of my computer, of just what my why is, so that if I'm having a bad day or I'm frustrated or the competitor in me is coming out and not the teacher and the coach, I can just look up on the sign and understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because at the end of the day, it's like I said before, for the student athletes and for their experience, and teaching them to have passion and love and for the sport, while also teaching them things of conflict resolution and time management and all the things that college athletics brings. But whether you're a coach, whether you're an administrator, whether you're in any role in athletics, you have to go back to why you're doing what you're doing. Because as we all know, it's not your typical, all right, I clock in at 9 and I leave at 5.
No.
It's the glitz and the glam of, I remember people when I was at Syracuse, they're like, oh, you're going to the Syracuse Duke basketball game. I'm like, yeah, but I have 5 recruits. I got to make sure I don't lose.
You're literally watching none of the game.
Nothing.
None of the game.
I'm watching nothing. And obviously you both know that. So
we don't watch many games.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that's the stereotypical response of what I get, especially from like a lot of friends that aren't in college athletics. It's just you don't know what you don't know. So
it's funny, that's something that I talk about. I teach a class about college athletics, and I always ask them, like, what is the reason why you want to go into the field? And try and just, like you said, reiterate, like, if your motivation isn't because you want to work with students and you want to you want to have this engagement and you want to kind of challenge yourself in a way that's maybe different than you're used to on a normal basis. And that it's not going to be about, oh, well, I want to watch a game or I want to like be able to tell people I'm on TV, because those are two things that just will not work out for you. There's a grouping of like interns or, people that are shadowing that quickly feel like, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden you don't see them again. So
exactly. Well, and like, I remember I had a family member who had a wedding in the fall, and she was like, well, can't you just take off? And I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
It doesn't
and
work.
And so like, you're going to miss a lot of things. And I don't mean for this part to sound like a Debbie Downer or negative around it, but again, it's
the truth.
It's the truth. And, but with that, there comes a lot of perks and benefits and positive things around the job and what you get to do every day. I don't have to sit behind a computer screen with Excel sheets up 24/7. I get to be on the field. I get to have meetings with student athletes. I get to work with so many other people from around the country. And it's exciting to be able to do that.
How did you know to transition? Because I'm sure from being a student athlete and seeing it from that perspective to like saying, okay, I want to do this as a profession from a coach. Like, what was that view for you? Like, how did you be able to make that jump and see that transition?
Yeah, well, at first I wanted to keep playing, and that was the only way to do it transparently. But, I knew once I started as an assistant at Temple, I was hooked to coaching. And I think looking back on my experience at Maryland, the most transformational time of my life was who I was as a freshman was not who I was as a senior from a leadership perspective or even a personality perspective. And so I knew I wanted to be a part of that development for student athletes. While also I just love the sport. I'm super competitive and I'm passionate about it. So to be able to give back to what's given me so much. But as a student athlete, I think, getting into coaching, I knew how much my coaches had done for me. And I wanted to be able to provide that same sense of comfort, but also pushing people to be the best they can be as well.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Good. The
so
why is important.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, and like you said, like, oh, I just want to stand on the sidelines, or I want to, be courtside, or I want to hang out. Like that's not what this is. And on any level, I know we talked about college athletics, but in any sort of sport, like whether you're working in professional or minor leagues or whatever, like there's always a sense of like, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that I don't think people understand. So if you understand that and that's part of the why, then this is the right place for you, because there are really great benefits with it. So
exactly. And even like you said, like obviously most of my experience has been at the college level, but for club coaches too, I mean, they have to deal with scheduling of facilities, right? Like the rental fees, parents, club administrator, like there's even there's more different, but more that they have to manage as well. But again, the joy for me and for a lot of coaches is like, oh, my 2.5 hours I get on the field or however long your practices are, helps you get to that point.
To be a part of that sport. That's awesome. Great job. Okay, Jen.
All right.
Last big one.
Last one. Okay. So, Katie, what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So what do you know now at this point in your career that you wish you knew when you first started?
I think there's like 1,000 things I could say. But I think the biggest one that's had the most impact on me from when I started to now being a head coach is it's okay to not be a people pleaser. And it's okay to not be a yes man, if that makes sense. Like it's okay to advocate for yourself and for your own thoughts and opinions, even if they're different than your bosses or your colleagues. And I think that's something that is so easy to just fall back on, yeah, I agree. And so like with my staffs, I challenge them. I'm like, if you don't agree with me, that's okay. Let's talk about it. And, we might not change what I think, but at least now we have an option B or a plan B if something doesn't go right. And, I think being prepared and having the right questions, if you feel like your opinions or your thoughts and feelings are going to be different than those above you, it's important to be prepared and have the right questions, because there's nothing worse than if someone disagrees with me and I'm like, okay, well, explain.
And
then they don't have an explanation.
Right.
You're like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I just think it's really important that if everyone were people pleasers in athletics, or everyone just said yes to the majority, then we wouldn't have the most beneficial or, positive experience for our student athletes. And that's what it's all about, of why we have staffs, why we hire different opinions, why we hire different people, is to bring different ideas to the table as well.
That's such a good one. Not being a people pleaser. That is such a good one. Because
Yeah.
I think even young people in the industry probably think, well, I have to agree with everything. I have to just go along with what my boss is saying because this is my job and I just have to do it. And I think there's a right way to do it too. Like to even develop it a little bit further. Like there's a right way to not be that yes man and get your points across and know like that fine line of like, okay, I've said what I needed to say. This is the decision that's made, and we need to all agree with it and move forward, even though maybe I don't 100% agree with it.
Yeah.
But being that people pleaser, because again, you can get stuck in that when you first start. Like, okay, my 100%. Boss says this, or the AD says this, or the head coach says this. I got to do this.
Yeah.
It's okay to have your own thoughts and feelings and opinions. I always say that to my staff too. So
yeah, I think that's like I came into coach, obviously no idea what was going on. I was like, I get to coach, not all the other little things that I had to do. And my first year coaching, I was such a people pleaser. And honestly, even through the first couple of years, just because I wanted to move forward in the profession, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes but to your point, Jen, like you have to do it in a respectful and trusting way.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's okay to agree to disagree.
Yes.
But then from if people want to go into an assistant coaching role or into an assistant position with whatever department, it's important to kind of get on board with that and reframe it so that you are positively supporting your superiors, even if it might go against what you're feeling. Because at the end of the day, from a coaching perspective, like you have to all be on the same page.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you recognize that. Okay. You know what? I know that really wasn't that person's first choice, but they were a team player and they really made everything out of it. And it makes such a difference. I mean, even you go back to coaching of like, hey, this person wasn't in the position they wanted the ball, but that's not the way the play was set up, but they made it happen for everybody else. Like that really changes your perspective. And two things. One, if you're saying your piece and people see that you're thinking things in a smart way, people recognize that even if you don't agree.
Correct.
And number two, then if you're that person that says, hey, they're one that works with the group, that makes you so much more appealing for those people that want to bring you on, because people know that you're going to be someone that helps get things done in whatever circumstance you're in.
Yeah. And you have to be a good teammate, right? Like we talk I'm a team sport. So, but when I go to our athletic directors or administrators and I propose something, I make sure that I have the facts behind it. And again, sometimes I get what I, want or am advocating for, and sometimes I don't, but at least the conversation's been had so that maybe even a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year from now, the thought has already been,
From an administrator side, you don't forget it. You're like, oh, I know that's what they wanted. I couldn't do that. But the next time it becomes an option, and I'm sure Jen could say it too, like the next time I am able to do something, I know that that's out there. I'm going to try my best to make it happen because it was presented and something that maybe we are able to do. So that was awesome. So great tip.
Good. So good.
Awesome.
Don't be a people pleaser. Don't be a people pleaser.
Exactly. As hard as it is.
Hard as it is.
Exactly.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for doing this. We are so glad to see you and see your success. And we look forward to watching Towson next season and all the great things that are coming, and your little one that's on the way. So that'll be exciting to see as well.
Thank you. Couple more weeks.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, thank you all for having me. This has been awesome. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, make sure to keep checking out 5 Tips and Tricks and follow us on all the socials at AthCareerPod, and make sure to subscribe and like us on all your favorite podcast networks. See you, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
If you like the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can rate and review us, including questions that may be answered on future episodes. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics is part of Athletic Career Consulting. Check us out at www.athcareer.com. Don't forget to follow and like us on your top social media platforms.